All right, Chapter 7, Section 3, where we're looking at sample proportions and estimating confidence intervals. So in a random sample of 250 people, so we have n equal 250. There we go. Sample of 250. 61 said they bring work home with them at least occasionally. Give a point estimate of the proportion of all employed people who bring work home with them at least occasionally, and then construct a 99% confidence interval for that proportion. Okay, so to estimate that proportion, so our proportion estimate will be that estimate from the sample. So from the sample, we have 61 out of 250. So there's our proportion estimate, and that equals 0.244. So there's our estimate of P, so P hat. All right, so we're going to construct a confidence interval for that, so a 99% confidence interval. So again, we have this alpha that goes with that. So the alpha is going to be 1% or 0.01. And remember again that we almost always have our alpha on either side, so we've got that plus or minus, so our alpha is going to be, we're going to be looking at alpha over 2. So 0.005, that's a 2 there. Now let's see what we're looking at. So for our proportion, our sample size looks large, so that's 250. We have to do the NP hat and NQ hat and look at those. So NP, so P is going to be our smaller, so that's the 0.244, and Q is going to be let's see, that's going to be essentially 756. So if NP is going to be greater than 5, then NQ definitely is. So N being 250 times, so our P hat being 61 over 250 times N being 250 gets us back to 61. So since that's definitely greater than or equal to 5, we're good with saying with our large sample equations. So in this case, our large sample equation was, so for our estimate, we'll use our P hat, the estimate from our sample, plus or minus, since we have a large sample size, our Z value back on the standard normal over 2, times the square root of P and Q divided by N. P hat, Q hat there. Okay, so let's go ahead and substitute that in. So our sample proportion from our sample was 0.244 from A, there for P hat, plus or minus Z. Okay, so this was, we wrote out Z over, we did the over 2, this is 0.005. So we can go from the table looking at 0.5 inside the table to find out on the outside to see what value of Z gives us that value of 0.005. Cumulative probability percent. And when we go through and do that, we see that's 2.576. So we have plus or minus 2.576 times the square root of our P hat again, 244, times our Q, which is 1 minus P hat, which we said was 756, or that's what I rattled off bit ago, and that's divided by our sample size of 250. So this will be 0.244 plus or minus 0.0700. So the interval then will be, let's see, 0.1740 and 0.3140. So our interval is that the 99% confident on our actual population proportion being between 17 and 31%, 0.4 on both of those. Okay.